Hello, Hoops fans, and happy Thursday. Thank you for joining us. I am Brittany Carper, joined today by Helen Williams. We were just recapping how the cold weather has reached Atlanta, and definitely not as cold as we see
It's
here in the
supposed to be
Midwest.
hot Atlanta,
Yeah,
not
yeah, they're not
yeah,
living up to the name, but
not living up
Coach,
to the nickname
yeah,
at all.
we know that the weather has obviously impacted a lot of communities around the country. And certainly you were talking about how Atlanta is a little colder than normal. But I know we just wanted to, start the episode off just with general, thoughts and thinking about everyone that has been affected by this storm. I know we were just talking, especially about, people down at Ole Miss in Oxford, how they're campus is closed down through February 8th. And, the thing about athletics is that you still have to try to find places and, people that can help you out and get practices because that schedule is not as flexible as it, could be in the non-conference.
Yeah, it's just and kudos to all the people that are helping these teams and broadcasters and officials and truck crews just pivot. I mean, it's just rather than being upset about it, people are just rolling up their sleeves and being a part of community and helping everybody out. So yeah, just best wishes to those who are impacted. Hopefully, if you lost power, you have it back by now. And yeah, it's Mother Nature constantly reminds us that she is in charge. So
Yes.
we
Whether we, yeah,
listen, but she is in charge.
whether we like that or not, that is absolutely true. So, without further ado, though, we're going to dig into some basketball talk. Yesterday, her Hoop Stats released the 2026 Kathy Delaney-Smith Mid-Major Coach of the Year Midseason Watch List. Named to that list was Megan Griffith from Columbia, Gail Fulks from Davidson, Carly Thibault-Dudanis from Fairfield, Lisa Fortier from Gonzaga, Sean O'Regan from James Madison, Jory Collins from North Dakota State, Carla Berube from Princeton, Tammy Reese from Rhode Island, Aaron Russell from Richmond, and Aaron Johnston from South Dakota State. Man, what a list, Coach.
But before I forget, there's somebody that I think should be on that list that's not, and it's Vanessa Blair Lewis from George Mason. She is now 9-0 in conference for the first time in her league and at the top of the Atlantic 10. So I'm going to put her on that list, even though it's not in print. I think she should be on that list. She's been an incredible head coach for 27 years at three different places, and she just wins. So before
Yeah.
I forget, I feel like she needs to be on that list. And,
I
she's
had
just
a, I had a couple others that I thought could be on there as
okay.
well.
Who?
Funny, I actually thought Rochelle Turner from Murray State. She has them at
Okay.
17-3 again, with actually a win over George Mason on a neutral court. And I think you kind of look at that as a win that maybe at the time you're unsure of, but now you look in George Mason leading the
Yep.
A10, and so I certainly think that was a possibility there. And then I just thought there's four teams in the Sun Belt that are currently sitting above James Madison in the standings.
Yeah.
In Arkansas State, Georgia Southern, Troy, and I'm missing one, but so I just thought maybe some consideration there. And I know that you could probably go across conferences, across the country and find one or two that you maybe thought was deserving. But certainly, this list speaks volumes to the quality of coaches at the mid-major level.
Yeah, and these are coaches. If I'm a Power Four athletic director, I'm paying attention, to them. I think that they've been able to navigate this new athletic landscape that we're in, where basically you get a kid, you're going to develop her for a couple of years, and then Power Four is going to come in with their checkbook, date myself checkbook, with their money and go, hey, come play for us, you've done a great job. So being able to operate and be okay in that environment is important. But they all have different coaching styles. I mean, I went through the list and just was trying to think about what separated them from others to get on this list. And it is, I mean, to some degree, it is about wins, right? But it's their coaching as well.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the thing that I hope we see from a lot of this list is that we also get the opportunity to see several of these teams in March. And
Yes,
what some people might not understand if you're not really familiar with the women's basketball landscape or just honestly the basketball landscape in general in college is the NCAA tournament, we often don't get an opportunity to see multiple mid majors from the same conference. And when you're looking at this list, notably, obviously, Davidson, Rhode Island, Richmond, they're all coming from the same conference. More than likely, only one of those are going to be playing in the NCAA tournament. You have North Dakota State, South Dakota State. Probably only one of those are going to be playing in the NCAA tournament. And so I think that is, somewhat of the unfortunate thing that I've said this before, but I think if the NCAA, the tournament was to ever expand, I
it's
would
going
love,
to. I'm just going to
yes,
tell you right now,
what
their
I would,
appetite for more revenue means they're
yeah,
going to expand.
what I would love to see is that the regular season conference winner is awarded a bid. Now, do I think that will happen? Probably not, but you could argue that going through a 18 or 20 game conference slate and being crowned champion is just as hard, if not harder, than a 3 or 4 day tournament. And so I think, you often put all your eggs in the basket of a 3 or 4 day tournament, but really, I think, the whole story of your season is those 18 or 20 conference games. And so that is just something that I think I would like to see happen in the future. But we also know that from this list, we won't get the opportunity to see all of these teams in March.
Yeah, and that's again goes back to the coaching why it's so important. I mean, you look at a league like the A10. Tammy Reese done a phenomenal job. She does have a signature win, right, over NC State, who I think is what second or third in the ACC now. So that the better I know they're rooting for NC State to continue to do well. But you don't really see a signature win for Richmond. They're not number one like they were last year. And then obviously George Mason, they're obviously doing really well, working on the third 20-win season in a row for Vanessa Blair Lewis. So, you look at those teams, and then you look at a Carla Berube who I think has 5 conference losses since she's been there. I've lost count of the number of wins. The losses are easier to calculate, but plays a tough schedule. All these teams have to play a tough schedule, non-conference, because once you get into conference, let's use Fairfield as an example. Fairfield in Connecticut, I know where Fairfield is now. Coach Tebow Dedonis, she's going to run through her league, right? And so she's got to have some. She's got to be able to have a non-conference schedule where they can do the eye test and see, hey, we can compete with these bigger teams. So really interesting to see that. And then I don't know if the Ivy League's going to get more than one bid this year. We'll see. Right now, it's Princeton at number one, and the fighting Megan Griffiths, Columbia at two. Do they have enough? Does whoever does not win Ivy Madness, do they have enough? With their non-conference schedule. So that's why that's so important.
Yeah, it really is. I think that's why a lot of the mid majors that are trying to position themselves better are scheduling hard games, and sometimes it's also really difficult for them to find programs that will play them. So
Yeah, it is because they
having,
don't want
yeah,
to work that hard. Like it is a possibility that Fairfield could beat a Power Four team,
right.
because some of these mid majors, truth be told, they've gotten transfers from the Power Four who were not happy with playing time or whatever, or just what I call sleepers. They needed to play to get better, and they weren't being able. They weren't able to do that at the Power Four level, so they go to mid-major and shine. So they're very competitive, and so yes, it's difficult sometimes to schedule non-conference for them.
Right, and for a Power 4, it's a huge risk with little reward to play those games because you're penalized, but not necessarily rewarded, depending on how the outcome of that game goes. But, certainly I think a very deserving list up until this point. It will be really interesting at the end, who kind of comes out on top. And I think a lot of that will be dictated by conference tournaments and who makes the NCAA tournament. And like I said, when you have a couple of these that are in the same conference, unfortunately, only one of those is going to advance into the NCAA tournament. But, a list that I think is very deserving. And certainly, like you said, there are some other coaches that I think were worthy of being on this list. And so if you're ever curious of kind of, who else could be on that list, I encourage you to go look up the mid-major conference standings and just see kind of where those teams sit and maybe, get some eyes on it for yourself. Because again, we talk often, me and you, especially just the quality of mid-major basketball. And that would definitely be an opportunity to do that. Kind of keeping with the same thing, I wanted to kind of talk today just about some teams that you and myself and you have talked about that have really improved their win total up until this point in the season, and many have surpassed it by quite a few at this point, with still several games to go. So, Coach, who did you kind of have that you wanted to touch on today?
Well, I am still 10 toes down on Clemson. They beat Notre Dame last week. I texted you and BMAC. I was like, see, look. They're phenomenal. They're number 8 right now in the conference, and they have games that I think that right now they're in as of Charlie Cream's last bracket on Tuesday. I think another one comes out today, but they were in. But in order for them to stay in, I mean, obviously beating NC State, beating Notre Dame, that's great. They can't lose their next games to SMU, Florida State, Boston College, and Georgia Tech. Like, they have to win those games, I think, to stay in the tournament. And then Syracuse is just, they're 4th right now. And as Coach Leggett says, she said, we're coming. And I don't think people took her too seriously, but they've got probably the rookie of the year, Uche. They're 4th right now, and I think they are good. They're already in. I think they would have to just collapse. I think. So those are 2 teams. I know they're Power 4 level, but based on what they did last year and what they did this year, what they're doing this year, I'm very impressed with both those teams.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're seeing, obviously 2 coaches that are fairly new to those programs, and really kind of establishing.
Alicia's new as a coach. She played at Syracuse. So.
Yes, yeah. So, but I mean, I think it's her 3rd year at Syracuse. Is that right?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
She.
and you
Yeah.
have Sean Poppy in his 2nd at Clemson. So you're seeing, kind of the fruits of their labor being rewarded this year with obviously those increasing wins. I'm going to pick one that's kind of out of left field, but when I was looking on her Hoop Stats win improvement today, they are currently 2nd in the country in win improvement, and that is Eastern Michigan. And they only had 2 wins last year. They are up to 10 already. And so that is just, I think I don't want to butcher the name, but Coach New Sebe, I think is how you pronounce that, but took over a program, obviously not in a great state, only won 2 games, but has them at 10 this year in a really competitive MAC league as well. And so I, just wanted to give my flowers to her. And then we've obviously talked a ton about Arizona State early in the year. They're already sitting at 18. They only won 10 last year. And then a team that we've also talked about in Texas Tech, who we got to get eyes on last night. But, they're a team that started the year undefeated. And, obviously, certainly on a path to increase their win total from last season. But, they dropped their 3rd out of 4 games, last night to Iowa State, in which a game, it was 84-70 was the final score there. And I think the biggest thing for that Tech team is I talked about it before they had lost, and you have that momentum that you're riding because you're undefeated. And then, you take that first defeat and you kind of get a chink in the armor, and then another one. And then now I'm really curious to see that response of that Tech team. What are your thoughts on that, Coach?
Yeah, I went back and I looked at the stats, and they let Iowa State have 40 points in the paint, which I mean that's kind of a given with
Yeah.
with Audie Crooks. So I'm not going to fault them for that because she does that to everybody. And but they did. Iowa State had no fast break points. So I'm looking at the defense. If they didn't have any fast break points, what was when you got into defensive transition after you got the first few passes, like what were you doing? Because I didn't get an
Mhm.
opportunity to watch the game last night, and then they allowed Iowa State to shoot almost 47% from 3-point range.
Yeah.
So inevitably, defense wins championships. His offense is great. It looks good. It's pretty, but you've got to defend. And I would venture to say, if I went back and looked at those games, that is probably one of the issues for them because they didn't have a problem with having double figure scores. They had 3 last night, so that hasn't been the issue for them. But if they want to, do well in the tournament, they've got to shore that up.
Right, and I thought the biggest thing last night was just the lack of post presence. Audie Crooks obviously is a hard guard, but she really put them in foul trouble early, and they never really could recover from that. But I also think this is an Iowa State team that we saw go through that 5-game losing streak. The return of Ariana Jackson last game, and you're seeing what she means to that team, and also the confidence that those other players were able to get when she was out. And obviously they're still missing Addie Brown. But you're right that the defensive presence last night from Tech just really wasn't there, allowing Audie to, really get what she wanted in the paint, but then conversely, not taking away the 3-point line, which if anyone remembers last year, Tech was the team that guarded the 3-point line really well and broke that streak of Iowa State having a 3-pointer made. And it was like some crazy number of games. And so certainly I think that's going to be a point of emphasis going forward for them. But also I think they need to have a game where they kind of get that momentum back, start feeling good about where they were when they were undefeated.
Yeah, and if you're not going to have a post presence, then you need more pressure on the perimeter, which would take care of the 3-point shooting as well. And that's not something that we saw. So you've got to find a way to. And listen, Texas Tech is not the only team that couldn't stop Audie Crooks. So they're in the group with everybody else, but you can't have 40 points in the paint and almost 47% 3-point shooting field goal percentage. So you've got to, make a choice there and put some more pressure on the ball.
Yeah, I would agree. That was kind of a recipe for a disastrous night on the Tech defensive front. Another ranked matchup last night that we, were privy to was Washington at Maryland, which was a double overtime game. And it ended up, Washington on top 83-80. And really, if you watched, Maryland got up double digits in the first half. Washington closed that gap early in the second half. And then it just kind of felt like a heavyweight fight after that. It was like made basket after made basket, or, defensive stop after defensive stop. And, Washington prevailed in a big road win for that team. Savia Sellers had 38 points. And it's really two teams that didn't play a lot, from their bench either. And so some tired legs, but I thought the key really was some missed free throws on the Maryland end that, could have kept them in the game. They had an opportunity to win the game on one. So do you have any general thoughts on that game, Coach?
I'm wondering if Maryland's still, this is the injuries, if they're still playing a part. With them not having a deep enough bench. So yeah, I mean the free throws are just that's something you can control. Like, you need to make your free throws. So I know you and BMAC were saying you were watching the game and it was killing you both that they weren't hitting free throws. But I'm wondering how much injuries are playing a part in Maryland when they can't close out these games.
Yeah, and I think, they're in a league where you're not getting really nights off. It's not time to rest up and get healthy. It's you have to kind of figure it out on the go. And just it was a really good game. It was just one where I'm sure Maryland's going to look back and think about the opportunities that kind of slipped away, from them. And then I know, turning to tonight, there's definitely some matchups that you're intrigued by.
Yeah, so I'm Alabama's playing Georgia tonight. I've said a lot about Alabama and how good I think they are, and Georgia has proven that if you come from the Kim Mulkey School of Scheduling, it can still work for you too. But they've had some big wins, over the last couple of games. So I think that is a very intriguing matchup. Louisville is playing Stanford tonight. Louisville, tops in the ACC. Stanford, definitely not an easy out. So it'll be interesting to watch those games. What are you looking at tonight?
Those were, kind of the Alabama Georgia was the one I really had my eyes on. Georgia was another team that has already surpassed their win total this season. Last year ended with 13. They're already at 18. And you're right, like there were so many questions because they hadn't played a really hard schedule. But I do think if that Georgia team shoots the ball really well, they're a hard team to beat, and I think at home that's probably going to be a tough game for Alabama. But I really I'm intrigued by that one, and then it's going to be interesting. I don't know that it'll be a great game, but Indiana's in a weird spot in the Big Ten. They're winless. Michigan's coming to them. Kind of interested to see the fight of that Indiana team and what that kind of looks like for them after not having picked up a win yet in the Big Ten. Are they still clawing, fighting, making that a battle, or have you kind of rolled over and given in?
Yeah, that's not going to happen with Coach Terry. She's not going to let that happen. I can tell you
Yeah,
that right
I
now.
don't think so
I can
either,
tell you
and so
that
that's
right now.
why
And
that's
she can coach, so yeah, they'll figure it out. They're not going to roll over.
yeah, and that's what I think is tough about that league is every night, even if you're talking about a Purdue or an Indiana or a Penn State or some of those that are towards the bottom, you're still going to have to show up, be
Yeah.
ready to play, and I think they're going to get somebody. It's just going to be really interesting to see when that happens. And then, were there any other games over the weekend you're kind of looking forward to, Coach?
Yeah, for sure. Tennessee. I mean, Tennessee, UConn. That's going to be a really good game. They are playing better. I think Tennessee. I forget the little point guard's name. Oh, is it Paldo? Paldo?
Paldo. Hmm.
Yeah. They're definitely getting back to what Coach Kim wanted for them. And then Texas and Oklahoma. Oklahoma coming, obviously they beat South Carolina. It's going to be a really good game because Oklahoma, they can shoot. And I was listening to a podcast yesterday, and Mitchell Northam had a good stat about how they win when you give the keys and the bus driver's a freshman. You kind of live and die with that. But when Alicia Chavez shoots like 38%, they win. When she doesn't, they don't. So how is Texas going to lock her down? And if and when they do, who else is going to step up? For that team, and they've got a lot of players that I think people don't really talk about, but they're very good. And I don't even want to say they're role players because they're very skilled. But everybody pays attention to Alicia Chavez, of course. And then again for Texas, like we know they're going to defend. Are you going to make any threes? That in between game is, it's all taken care of. The post game's all taken care of. It's not like you have to make 18 threes, but at some point you have to start being consistent with hitting those, especially as you get into the tournament if you want to advance, I think.
Yeah, that's always been something I pointed out about Texas is just what does that 3-point shot look like in March? Is it going to be there for that Texas team? Because if it is, they certainly have, every right to be in that conversation for national champions. If it's not, I think that makes it a little bit harder for them. Another game I was certainly intrigued by is Iowa and UCLA. They're the
Yeah,
last two
Sunday.
undefeated in the Big Ten, and I think this is an Iowa team that's probably playing their best basketball of the season right now. They recently lost Taylor McCabe, but I think it's a team that's continuing to get more confidence, and just really playing at a high level right now. And this is a test that I know they're going to be ready for, but I'm excited to see because they're the last undefeated in the Big Ten with UCLA. So what does that look like for this Iowa team?
The scary thing about Iowa is that they're even going to be better next year. Like, you got to give Coach Jensen credit. You normally don't want to follow the legend. You want to follow the person that followed the legend, right? But she has done a fantastic job with Iowa. She's got a great recruiting class coming in next year. This class is going to be a year older, so very, very impressed. Their only thing is they just need experience, right? They've got the talent. The main thing right now is they need real time adverse situation and in games experience.
Yeah, and I think certainly that could happen on Sunday. And the other matchup that I think will be really good is Michigan at Michigan State on Sunday. I think you got the battle there, and again, we talk about the Big Ten. You're always kind of fighting for those seeds and what that looks like. So definitely some promising games coming up. And then I also just wanted to touch on you're going to see a lot of pink uniforms coming out. And so, certainly on the women's side, it is the Play for K, something that a lot of women's programs participate in, honoring Coach K Yao and her foundation in the awareness of women fighting all sorts of cancers. It was obviously initially kind of started for breast cancer, I believe, but now, it's just the awareness and the money that goes to that. And obviously, this hit home in our house because my wife, Kristen, played for Coach K Yao and was on her staff at the end there. And Illinois State is won the BCS and non-BCS, I believe, like the last 3 or 4 years in the money that they raise. And I just, if you have extra dollars that you can give to this cause, I would strongly encourage, because I think at this point in our lives, we all know someone who has been affected
I'm
by
gonna say
cancer.
not one person has not been touched in some way for sure.
Yeah, and I just love that the women's game continues to honor it. It grows every year, and I just think when you turn on the TV and you see those pink uniforms, it means more because you understand the cause that it's going for.
Yeah, that's one of the things I've always loved about women's basketball is we always highlight those types of things and bring light to those things that people need to know about. So, I kind of get into the designs of the uniforms too. I'm trying to figure out, do I like that pink shade? Do I not? Could they have done something better with it? Has absolutely nothing to do with basketball, but I'm still rating the uniforms.
Well, you should also rate the shoes because those are they're pretty good this year. I believe they're Kobe's, and they're their new shoe every single year that they send out the Nike through the KYAO, and the ones this year are pretty sweet. So you'll have to see. You'll turn on the TV and see them, but I know the pink uniforms are really cool too, and there's some designs to those that are fun. But I just can't stress enough, like, please support those causes. Go to a game, and there's so many survivors that come, and they feel all the love that day, and we certainly can't lift them up enough from obviously our podcast. But I just would really encourage people to get out and support those causes because fighting cancer is something that we all can do.
Yeah, I mean, and every little bit counts. You don't have to give a ginormous check. Just whatever you have available, every little bit counts.
Absolutely. And we also need your support here. So catch us on any of the platforms that we are available. You can follow us at Her Hoop Stats, Blue Sky, Instagram, Threads, Twitter. You can listen to us on Apple Podcasts. You can see our beautiful smiling faces on YouTube. It's always fun to catch up with you, Coach. Enjoy the games. And hey, get back to hot Atlanta weather.
That is the plan for sure.
Sounds good. Have a great Thursday, everybody.